You'll take all three of us before dawn. Vampire Brothers Corner, Trembling Virgin Sacrifice. In the dim light of a rising moon, the castle loomed, a jagged silhouette against the stormy sky. Its towers clawed at the clouds, and the windows shone faintly, like eyes that watched everything and nothing at once. Leora, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders, approached the castle with a mixture of awe and fear. She had heard the stories in the village below, of brothers who ruled the castle, creatures of the night, bound by an ancient curse. They were said to be immortal, fierce, and impossible to resist. Few dared to look upon their faces, and fewer still had ever returned from the castle. Yet here she was. Her heart pounded as she stepped through the castle's iron gates, the hinges groaning like whispers of warning. Each step echoed on the cobblestones, carrying with it the tension of 1,000 unspoken stories. Leora had not come seeking danger. She had come seeking answers. Her village was dying under a plague that no healer could cure, and only the mysterious power of the brothers might save them. The first hall she entered was enormous, lined with dark tapestries and candles that burned with a strange, cold light. Shadows danced along the walls as though alive. Somewhere above, the wind rattled a window and the sound was like a voice calling her name. "You're here," a deep, smooth voice said. Leora spun, her eyes searching the dim corridor. There, leaning against the wall with a grace that seemed impossible for any human, was the first brother. His hair was as black as the night itself, falling across his sharp features, and his eyes, oh, his eyes glimmered like twin pools of storm-tossed water. "I am Kale," he said. "And you must be Leora," her breath caught. She had not expected him to know her name or to speak to her without suspicion. Yet his voice was not threatening. It was a melody, a pull, a current that tugged at her very soul. "Yes," she whispered. "I came for help for my village." Kale's eyes softened, though only for a moment before a shadow of caution returned. "You have come to the wrong place if you seek comfort. And yet," he tilted his head, studying her, "perhaps you have also come to find yourself." Before Leora could answer, another presence made itself known. This one moved differently, lighter, almost playful, but no less dangerous. He emerged from the darkness, his silver hair catching the candlelight and his eyes glinting with mischief and sharp intellect. "I am Silas," he said, bowing slightly, though with a challenge in his gaze. "Do you always bring guests to our halls, Kale, or is this special?" Kale's jaw tightened, a subtle warning in the line of his mouth. "Silas," he said sharply, "control yourself. She is no guest. She has purpose." Silas's smile did not fade, though a flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps admiration, crossed his face. "Purpose, him? I like the sound of that. Do tell me, Leora, what drives you to our castle where even the bravest falter?" Leora swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how small she felt in the presence of two beings who radiated such power. Yet she held her gaze. "I seek the cure for my people," she said. "I have heard tales that you can help those in need." Kale's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the air between them seemed to thrum with tension. Silas leaned closer, curious, almost teasing, and yet there was an edge of danger in his closeness. "You seek a cure," Kale said finally, his voice low and deliberate. "And yet do you understand what you ask? To step into our world is to leave your own behind. To bargain with us is to risk more than your life." "I understand," Leora said, though her heart raced. "I would do anything to save them." Kale studied her and then, without another word, turned and walked deeper into the hall. Silas followed, his movements a whisper behind Kale's commanding presence. Leora had no choice but to follow, each step carrying the weight of destiny and fear alike. The halls twisted and turned, leading her through chambers that felt alive with old magic. She saw mirrors that reflected not her own image but faint shadows of the past, tapestries that seemed to move as she passed, and statues whose eyes followed her with silent accusation. The castle itself was a creature, ancient and aware. Finally, they reached a room at the far end of the castle, a place bathed in a soft, otherworldly glow. Candles floated midair, casting gentle light on an enormous table carved from black stone. Upon it lay a single book, its cover worn and etched with symbols that seemed to move beneath her gaze. "This is the Book of Waking," Kale said. "It contains knowledge and power, but it does not give freely. You must earn what you seek." Leora stepped closer, her fingers trembling as they hovered over the book. A pulse of warmth radiated from it, almost as if it recognized her, and yet a cold edge whispered caution. Silas leaned over her shoulder, his voice soft now, almost intimate. "Many have come before you seeking answers, seeking power. Few have lasted the night. Tell me, Leora, do you believe you are stronger than them?" Leora's jaw set. "I have no choice but to be." Kale's voice cut through the tension, firm and commanding. "Strength is not always measured in courage alone. There is cunning, patience, and the willingness to endure suffering without losing yourself." He gestured to the book. "The first test awaits. If you fail, you may leave, or you may not leave at all." A shiver ran through Leora. The words were both a warning and a promise. She opened the book slowly, its pages whispering secrets older than any kingdom, older than the mountains themselves. Symbols shifted beneath her eyes, forming a pattern, a riddle, a key. She realized instantly that this was not simply a book of cures or spells. It was a reflection of the heart, of the mind, of the choices that could bind or break a soul. Kale and Silas watched her closely, their expressions unreadable. The tension between them, subtle but palpable, made the air feel thick. She sensed a long history in the way they moved around each other, in the silent respect and rivalry, in the flickers of emotion they tried to hide. Hours seemed to pass as she studied the symbols, deciphering riddles that were more than mere letters. They were emotions, echoes, and desires woven into the very fabric of magic. Every choice she made within the book brought an emotional toll, weighing on her heart and spirit. When finally she looked up, the brothers were closer than before, their faces almost shadows in the candlelight, yet impossibly alive. "You have begun," Kale said, "but the night is far from over. Before dawn, all truths will reveal themselves. Be prepared, Leora, for even the purest intentions can awaken darkness." Silas, leaning casually against the edge of the table, smirked, though there was a softness in his gaze. "And remember, the night is long, and not all shadows want to be chased away. Some will claim you if you let them." Leora's breath caught, and a shiver ran down her spine. She realized with sudden clarity that she was no longer merely a seeker of cures. She had stepped into a world where hearts, power, and destiny intertwined. She could not turn back now. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the scent of storm and sea. The castle seemed to hum, as though aware of her resolve. The shadows in the hall grew darker, stretching toward her like fingers, and somewhere deep in the castle, a clock told the hours of the night. And then, as if the night itself had spoken, a distant scream echoed from the outer walls, a warning, a challenge, or perhaps an invitation. Leora swallowed hard, gripping the edges of the book. Whatever awaited her before dawn, she knew one thing with certainty. She would face it, not just for her village, but for herself. The night was alive, the brothers were watching, and her heart, was already caught in the tension of their world. The storm outside raged on. The castle whispered secrets older than time, and in the depths of shadowed corridors, destinies were beginning to collide. Leora's journey had begun. The storm outside had not subsided. Rain lashed against the castle walls, and the wind seemed to howl with voices of the past. Inside, the corridors were quiet, save for the soft echo of Leora's footsteps as she moved through the halls, the Book of Waking clutched tightly to her chest. Kale and Silas followed at a distance, silent and watchful. Their presence was both comforting and unnerving. Kale, with his quiet intensity, and Silas, with his unpredictable energy, were like two sides of the same coin, darkness and light, danger and allure. "You've read far," Kale said, his voice breaking the silence. But understanding is only the first step. The book will not simply tell you what to do, it tests your heart, your choices, and even your fears. Leora nodded, her mind still spinning from the symbols and riddles she had encountered. I feel strange, she admitted, as if the book knows me, as if it sees all my thoughts, my doubts, even my hopes. That is because it does, Kale said, stepping closer. Magic is not blind. It responds to those who approach it, shaping itself around the seeker. But beware what it gives, it can also take away. Silas's laugh was soft, almost musical, but carried an edge. And some gifts are sweeter than they appear. Some curses wear a mask of kindness. He leaned against the wall, watching her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter, though she told herself it was only fear. They reached a chamber filled with mirrors, tall and elegant, stretching from floor to ceiling. The glass reflected not only her image but also faint shadows that moved independently, shifting like smoke. Leora stopped, feeling a chill run down her spine. These are the mirrors of truth, Kale said. They will show you more than your reflection. They will reveal your desires, your regrets, and even what you try to hide from yourself. Leora stepped forward cautiously. Her reflection shimmered, then changed. In one mirror, she saw herself as the healer she wished to be, surrounded by people she had saved. In another, she saw herself failing, the village crumbling, her hands empty. Her chest tightened with a mixture of fear and longing. Silas moved beside her, silent for a moment. "It is easier to run from what you see," he said softly. "But facing it, that is where strength begins. That is where you find what you are willing to fight for." Leora's eyes met his, and she noticed the faintest shadow of vulnerability behind his confident gaze. He seemed human, despite the aura of power that surrounded him. And for a moment, she wondered what it would be like to know the secrets he carried. Kale's voice broke through her thoughts. "Enough. Mirrors show truths, but they can also trap. You must leave this chamber before they consume your mind." Reluctantly, Leora turned away. The brothers guided her through a winding staircase that descended into the castle's heart. The air grew colder, heavy with the weight of unseen magic. Leora shivered, pulling her cloak tighter. "This place," she said, glancing at the stone walls that seemed to pulse with life, "it feels alive." "That is because it is," Kale said. "The castle remembers. It remembers those who have lived here, those who have fallen, and those who sought its power. Every stone, every shadow, it has a memory." They entered a library, vast and circular, filled with ancient scrolls, glowing crystals, and books that seemed to float gently in the air. A single candle burned in the center, illuminating a large, intricate map carved into the floor. "This is the map of fates," Silas said, tracing the glowing lines with a pale finger. "It shows paths that can be taken, choices that can change destiny. But beware, Leora, even the smallest decision can have consequences you cannot predict." Leora leaned over the map, fascinated. She saw her village marked in red, faintly glowing, and beside it, a dark shadow spreading slowly, like smoke curling across the land. Her heart clenched. "You must choose your path carefully," Kale said. "To save your village, you may need to face things you do not yet understand, things that are not simply good or evil but necessary." Leora swallowed, a knot forming in her stomach. "And if I fail?" Kale's gaze was steady, almost unreadable. "Then you risk more than the village. You risk yourself. But even failure teaches. Even darkness can guide you toward light if you do not lose hope." Silas's eyes gleamed, his expression unreadable. "And sometimes hope is a dangerous thing. It can make you vulnerable, or it can give you strength beyond measure. The question is, will you let it guide you or will it blind you?" The tension between the brothers was palpable. Kale's stern authority and Silas's teasing unpredictability created a storm around Leora, and she felt caught in the center. She realized that their differences were not merely personalities. They were lessons, tests, and perhaps even reflections of what she herself might become. Kale motioned to a glowing door at the back of the library. "Your next trial awaits," he said. "Beyond this door is the Chamber of Echoes. There, you will confront memories that are not your own, voices that whisper truths and lies alike. You must discern which is which." Leora hesitated. The storm outside had reached a peak, lightning flashing through the narrow windows, illuminating the vast library in sudden, brilliant bursts. Each flash cast moving shadows across the walls, making the library feel even more alive, almost sentient. Silas stepped closer, his presence both reassuring and unsettling. "I will come with you," he said softly, "not to guide but to observe. Sometimes the echoes are persuasive. They will try to sway you." Kale's eyes narrowed. "This is not a place for comfort, Silas. Leora must face this herself." Silas smirked faintly, unconcerned. "Perhaps, but no one ever truly faces anything alone, do they?" With a deep breath, Leora pushed open the glowing door. The air inside was thick, warm, and heavy with whispers. She stepped cautiously into the Chamber of Echoes, the door closing behind her with a soft sigh. The room was circular, walls lined with countless faintly glowing orbs. Each orb seemed to contain movement, flickers of light, shadows dancing within them. The whispers began almost immediately, soft, indistinct at first, then growing clearer, speaking in voices that seemed both familiar and strange. "Leora," one voice said, "you cannot do this alone." Another whispered, "The choice is yours, but the cost is greater than you know." Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus. She realized that these voices were fragments of memories, not her own, but tied to the castle, the brothers, and perhaps even her own destiny. A figure emerged from one of the orbs, a shadow of someone she had never met but somehow felt she knew. The figure reached out, and Leora felt a surge of emotion, fear, longing, regret, crashing over her. "Face it," Kale's voice echoed from the door, though she knew he was not there. "Do not let them control you. Strength is not the absence of fear, but the courage to endure it." Leora's eyes filled with tears, but she took a deep breath. She reached toward the shadow, confronting the emotions it carried. Slowly, carefully, she separated truth from illusion, learning that strength often required vulnerability. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. The whispers continued, but Leora grew steadier, more confident. She realized that fear and hope could coexist, that darkness could guide her as much as light. When she finally stepped out of the Chamber of Echoes, the storm had calmed slightly. The library was quiet once more, the floating books settling gently in place. Kale and Silas awaited her, their expressions unreadable. "You survived," Kale said, a hint of approval in his voice. "But do not think the night is over. Every choice you make brings consequences. Every step forward draws you closer to the truth and closer to danger." Silas's gaze lingered on her longer than necessary, a mixture of curiosity and something else she could not name. "You are learning fast, Leora," he said. "Faster than I expected. But remember, power is never given freely. It is earned, and often, it asks for more than you are ready to give." Leora nodded, though her heart raced with anticipation and fear. She realized she was no longer merely a visitor in this world. She was part of it now, bound by choice, destiny, and something deeper she did not yet understand. Outside, the first pale light of dawn began to creep across the horizon, touching the castle's highest towers. Leora knew the day would bring new challenges, new tests, and new truths. And though she did not yet know what awaited her, she felt a strange certainty in her heart. She was ready to face whatever came next. Yet as the brothers and Leora gazed toward the rising sun, a shadow moved silently across the castle grounds. Something ancient, powerful, and unseen stirred, watching, waiting. And somewhere deep within, Leora sensed that her journey had only just begun. The dawn had barely touched the castle's highest towers when Leora awoke in a small chamber tucked deep within the stone walls. The room was simple, yet it carried an air of quiet elegance. A soft bed, a single window that looked over the cliffs, and a small desk cluttered with scrolls and candles. The light of morning was pale and cold, and outside the storm had passed, leaving a heavy mist curling along the cliffs. She rose slowly, her body still trembling from the chamber of echoes. The emotions she had faced, the fear, the doubt, the shadows of lives not her own, clung to her like mist. She took a deep breath, grounding herself, trying to hold onto the strength she had discovered in the night. Cale entered without knocking. His presence was calm, authoritative, yet there was something softer in his gaze this morning, a rare openness. "You face the echoes," he said simply. "Few do, and fewer survive without being changed. You are no longer the same Leora who entered this castle last night." "I feel different," she admitted. "Stronger but also heavier, as if the choices I made there follow me now." Cale nodded. "They do. Every choice binds you to the path you walk. But know this, strength is measured not only by what you endure but by what you refuse to become." Before Leora could respond, the door opened again and Silas slipped in, moving with his usual effortless grace. "I see the night has left its mark," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Do you feel it? The weight of knowing you are part of something far larger than yourself." "Yes," Leora whispered, "but I do not yet understand it fully." Silas leaned against the desk, his eyes studying her closely. "Understanding comes in time, and in trials. Today you will face your next test, one that will not only challenge your courage but also your trust." Leora's heart quickened. She had survived the Chamber of Echoes, but Cale and Silas spoke now of a trial far more tangible. She felt a thrill of fear, and yet beneath it, a spark of determination. Whatever this castle demanded, she would meet it. Cale and Silas led her through twisting hallways, down spiral staircases, and into a vast hall that seemed to stretch endlessly. At its center stood a massive circle etched into the floor, glowing faintly with silver light. Candles hovered along its edges, casting shadows that danced like living creatures. "This is the circle of trials," Cale said. "Within this circle, illusions will attempt to test your spirit, your heart, and your mind. You must see through them to the truth. Only then can you proceed." Leora stepped into the circle cautiously. The silver light seemed to warm her skin, yet a chill ran through her bones. As soon as she moved forward, the world shifted. The hall disappeared, replaced by a forest bathed in moonlight. Mist curled around gnarled trees, and the air smelled of wet earth and something unnameable, ancient, deep, alive. From the shadows, figures emerged. They were neither human nor entirely spectral, their forms shimmering like smoke. Leora's heart raced. She recognized these figures as reflections of herself and her fears, twisted by magic into forms meant to confuse and test her. "You must not be afraid," Cale's voice echoed, though he was not beside her. "Fear is a guide, not a chain. Face what you see and you will find your way." Silas's voice followed soon after, playful yet warning. "And remember, not all shadows are what they seem. Some are truths you avoid, others are lies you cling to." Leora took a deep breath. She focused on the first figure that stepped forward, a mirror of herself, younger and frightened. Its eyes were wide, filled with doubt. Leora felt a pang of sorrow. This was who she had been before coming to the castle, uncertain and fearful. "I am not you anymore," she whispered. "I have learned, I have survived, I have chosen my path." The figure hesitated, then melted into mist, leaving only the silver glow of the circle behind. Another figure appeared, this one tall and dark, with eyes that glimmered like Cale's stormy gaze. It spoke in his voice, commanding yet cold. "Do you have the courage to lead, Leora? To make choices that others cannot understand?" Her breath caught. She realized that the trial was not only about survival but about understanding the weight of leadership, of responsibility. She nodded slowly. "I will not run from what must be done. I will choose wisely, even when it is difficult." The figure's eyes softened, and it too dissolved into mist. Finally, a third figure emerged, graceful and unpredictable, with a faint, mischievous smile that reminded her of Scylla's. Its voice was playful, teasing, yet edged with truth. "And can you trust others, Leora? Can you allow yourself to lean on someone even when you fear betrayal?" She hesitated. The memory of the brothers, their power, their rivalry, their intensity, flashed through her mind. She realized that she had already begun to care for them, to trust them in ways she had never allowed herself before. "I will trust," she said softly, her voice stronger than she expected. "I will not face this alone." The figure melted away, leaving Leora standing in the silver glow of the circle. She felt a surge of warmth and clarity, a sense of purpose that steadied her heart. She had passed the trial, not perfectly, perhaps, but enough to understand her strength and her choices. Kale appeared at the edge of the circle, his expression unreadable. "You have done well," he said. "But the night is not yet over. Strength is not final. It grows, changes, and is tested again and again. Remember this, Leora. The path you walk will demand more than courage. It will demand heart." Silas stepped forward, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "And sometimes," he said softly, "the heart is the greatest test of all. You are learning, Leora, and that is rare." Leora felt a strange flutter in her chest, a mixture of fear and something else she could not name. She knew that the bond between them was changing, growing more complex, more profound. The brothers were not only her guides but reflections of the world she had entered, mirrors of her own courage and desire. As the silver light faded, the hall returned to its vast, shadowed state. Candles hovered once more, and the mist lifted, leaving Leora standing between Kale and Scylla's. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the trials they had shared and the emotions they could not speak aloud. "You have grown," Kale said, his voice quiet but firm. "And yet growth attracts attention. The night watches all who enter here. Some are allies, some are not." Leora felt a chill. She realized that the castle was alive in ways she had not yet understood, and that the trials she faced were only part of a larger story. Danger, power, and fate all moved around her, unseen but undeniable. Silas's eyes gleamed, his expression unreadable. "And not all who watch are patient. Some will test you, some will tempt you, and some may challenge you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Leora swallowed hard. She understood that her journey was far from over. The castle had revealed her strength, her fears, and her capacity for trust, but the dawn was only the beginning. Shadows remained, waiting, and the bonds she was forming with Kale and Scylla's were still fragile, shifting with every glance, every word, every unspoken thought. Kale motioned for her to follow. "There is one more path you must walk before the night ends, one that will reveal more than power or courage. It will reveal the truth of your heart." Together they moved through the castle's winding corridors, past chambers she had never seen, until they reached a balcony overlooking the cliffs. The sun was rising, casting a pale light across the sea. The mist swirled below, hiding shapes that moved like living shadows. Leora felt a mixture of awe and unease. The view was breathtaking, yet it reminded her of the fragility of life, of the stakes of her journey. "You see the world as it is," Kale said softly, "and yet also as it could be. Choices shape destiny. Courage shapes the soul. And love shapes everything else." Leora's breath caught. The word hung in the air, powerful and forbidden. She glanced at Scylla's, whose gaze lingered on her, unguarded for a moment, as if the words had touched something deep within him too. "Before dawn," Kale continued, "all truths will reveal themselves. You will be tested, tempted, and challenged. And when the sun rises, only those who have faced the night without fear will remain standing." Leora nodded, feeling the weight of destiny press upon her. She was no longer a mere visitor. She was a participant, a player in a game of shadows, choices, and hearts. And somewhere deep within, she knew that what she felt for the brothers, trust, admiration, something more, was part of the trial, part of the path she could not yet see clearly. As the sun rose higher, a new presence stirred within the castle. Leora sensed it before she saw it. A movement in the mist, a whisper in the stones, a shadow that watched and waited. The final test of the night was coming, one that would demand all her courage, all her heart, and all her newfound strength. And as she stood between Kale and Scylla's, feeling the tension, the unspoken bonds, and the weight of what was to come, Leora knew one truth. The night was far from over, and the dawn would demand everything she had learned, and perhaps more. The mist shifted, the wind whispered, and the castle seemed to hold its breath. The final trial of the night was approaching, and nothing would ever be the same. The castle was silent now, almost holding its breath. Outside, the last shadows of night clung to the cliffs, and the mist swirled like a living river along the stone walls. Leora stood in the central hall, flanked by Kale and Scylla's, both of whom had grown silent and watchful as the final test approached. Her heart beat faster than the wind outside. The lessons of the night, the chamber of echoes, the circle of trials, had sharpened her mind, strengthened her courage, and taught her the weight of choices. Yet now, with the first pale light creeping across the horizon, she understood that nothing would be simple. Kale spoke first, his voice steady, commanding. "Leora, you have faced fear, illusion, and temptation. You have learned trust and discernment. But this final trial will test your heart, not only your mind." Scylla's gaze lingered on her, intense and unguarded. "And perhaps," he said softly, "it will reveal what you are willing to fight for and who you are willing to believe in." The hall shimmered suddenly, and the floor beneath their feet seemed to dissolve into mist. Leora gripped the edges of her cloak, her pulse quickening. Around them, shapes began to appear, figures cloaked in darkness, their movements slow and deliberate. The air was thick with energy, as if the castle itself had awakened to witness the trial. Kale stepped forward, his presence solid and grounding. "These are the guardians of the threshold. They will test your resolve, your courage, and your heart. Do not be fooled by fear. Only through understanding and trust can you pass." The figures advanced, their forms solidifying into warriors clad in shadow, eyes glowing faintly like coals. Leora felt the first spark of fear, but she forced herself to breathe, recalling the lessons of the night. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to move forward despite it. Scylla's moved beside her, his hand brushing hers as he gestured toward the shadows. "Remember," he said softly, "you do not walk this path alone. Trust in what you have learned and in those who walk with you." With Kale and Scylla's flanking her, Leora stepped forward. The first guardian lunged, its shadowy blade swinging with silent force. She sidestepped instinctively, remembering the movements she had practiced in the illusions of the circle of trials. Her heart pounded, yet her mind was clear. The second guardian advanced, testing her with illusions of failure, images of her village crumbling, loved ones in danger, herself powerless and broken. The shadows whispered doubts, seeking to unsettle her. Leora closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. She pictured the village alive and safe, the people smiling and the warmth of the hope she carried. When she opened her eyes, the illusions faltered. The shadows hesitated, uncertain. Strength surged within her, not from physical skill alone, but from the clarity of purpose and the courage of her heart. Kale moved with precision, confronting the guardians with his own formidable presence. Each motion was deliberate, powerful, and commanding. He guided the shadows away without striking them unnecessarily, demonstrating that strength need not always be destructive. Scylla's, unpredictable and fluid, moved like water around the guardians, distracting, weaving, and testing them in unexpected ways. His energy was chaotic yet precise, a counterbalance to Kale's discipline. Together, the three of them formed a harmony, a combination of strength, cunning, and trust. The final guardian approached, a massive figure cloaked in the deepest shadow. Its eyes glowed brighter than the others, and the air around it seemed to hum with energy. Leora felt an almost magnetic pull toward it, as if it carried all the doubts, fears, and choices she had faced in the past night. "You have come far," Kale's voice said beside her. "But this is the final test. Face it not with fear but with understanding. The Guardian is a reflection of your heart." Leora took a deep breath. She remembered the echoes she had faced, the choices she had made, and the trust she had learned to place in Kale and Scylla's. She realized that the Guardian was not an enemy, but a mirror, a challenge to accept herself, her desires, and her strength. Stepping forward, she raised her hands not to strike, but to reach. The Guardian's form shifted, reflecting images of the village, the brothers, and herself intertwined with light and shadow. Leora's heart ached with the weight of responsibility and longing. "I understand now," she whispered. "I am not alone. My strength comes from my choices, and from the bonds I form. I will not falter." The Guardian paused, as if considering her words, its glowing eyes softening. Then slowly it dissipated into mist, leaving behind a calm, luminous glow. Leora felt a surge of relief and triumph. She had passed the final trial, not through force alone, but through courage, understanding, and trust. Kale stepped closer, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You have faced the night fully," he said. "Few can claim that. Few can endure both fear and choice without losing themselves. You have proven yourself, Leora." Silas moved beside her, his hand brushing hers again, his voice low and almost tender. "And perhaps," he said, "you have also proven that even the heart can be strong, even in darkness. You have earned more than survival, you have earned understanding." Leora looked between them, feeling a strange warmth that went beyond relief. The night had tested her, shaped her, and revealed the strength and depth of her own heart. And in the quiet moments between trials, she had come to understand something else. That trust, connection, and perhaps even love could flourish even in the shadow of danger. The castle shifted around them, the magic of the night settling into calm. The mist cleared from the cliffs, revealing the first light of dawn spilling over the sea. The storm was gone, replaced by a fragile, radiant silence. Kale's gaze lingered on Leora, his voice quiet. "Now you must decide how to use what you have gained. Knowledge, courage, and the power to influence destiny are not gifts to be taken lightly. The choice is yours." Silas's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability crossing his features. "And remember," he said, "the bonds you form, the trust you give, those are as powerful as any magic in this castle. Do not underestimate them." Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night and the promise of the day. She thought of her village, of the people who depended on her, and of the lessons she had learned from the brothers. She realized that courage alone was not enough. She needed wisdom, trust, and the strength of heart to face what came next. "I will use it wisely," she said, her voice steady. "I will protect my village and I will honor the trust you have placed in me." Kale nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Then you are ready, not only for your path but for whatever the dawn brings." Silas's hand lingered near hers for a moment longer, a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey. "The night changes everything," he said softly, "and sometimes it brings unexpected light." As the first rays of the sun kissed the castle towers, Leora felt a profound sense of completion. The trials were over, but the journey was only beginning. She had faced fear, embraced trust, and discovered strength within herself that she had never known. The night had been long, dark, and testing, but it had shaped her into someone capable of standing against the unknown. Outside, the world seemed to breathe with her. The mist lifted from the cliffs, revealing the sea glittering in the early morning light. The castle, ancient and alive, seemed to pulse with quiet approval. Kale and Silas remained by her side, shadows and guides, guardians and companions. Leora realized that the bond she shared with them was not merely of teacher and student, but something deeper, a connection forged in trials, trust, and the shared understanding of hearts tested by night. "Before dawn, everything is revealed," Kale said softly. And now, Leora, the dawn has come. The shadows retreat and the world waits for your choice. Leora looked at the horizon, the village far below, the sea stretching endlessly. She felt fear, yes, but also hope. Strength, courage, and trust had carried her through the night. And now, with the light breaking across the world, she knew she could face whatever came next, not alone, but with those who had walked beside her through shadow and trial. Silas smiled faintly, a warmth in his eyes. "The night changes all of us," he said. "But it is the dawn that shows who we truly are." Leora's heart swelled with understanding. The night had tested her, revealed truths, and shaped her. The dawn, she realized, was not the end. It was the beginning of everything she was capable of becoming. As the sun climbed higher, casting long golden rays across the castle and cliffs, Leora stepped forward. She was ready for the world, for her village, for the paths of destiny and heart that lay before her. And though the trials of the night were over, the bond she shared with Kale and Silas, the trust and understanding forged in shadow, would carry her far beyond the dawn. The mist cleared, the shadows receded, and Leora's journey, shaped by courage, heart, and trust, began anew. The night was behind her, but its lessons, its power, and its truths would remain forever.